Hello to you, my wonderful listeners. Welcome to another inspiring episode where we dive deep into the realms of self discovery, empowerment, and embracing life's transitions. I'm thrilled to introduce my guest today, Lou Featherstone, a 51-year-old woman who has embarked on an extraordinary journey of confidence and self love. After spending years feeling trapped in societal expectations, Lou made a bold decision during the COVID-19 lockdown to separate from her husband of many years. This courageous leap led her on a path of rediscovery and ignited her passion to empower women of all ages. With her infectious energy and unwavering determination, Lou is leaving a remarkable legacy by sharing her personal journey. In our candid conversation, Lou confronts the taboo surrounding aging and challenges conventional norms. We explore topics such as the stigma around growing older, the impact of ageism on women's self-perception, and the transformative power of embracing change. Lou also fearlessly delves into the realm of sex and intimacy among older individuals, dismantling misconceptions and highlighting the beauty of these connections. Lou takes us on a whirlwind tour of her self-love revolution, sharing valuable insights and experiences gained along the way. From discussions about menopause to navigating midlife crises, Lou offers a fresh perspective that encourages us to celebrate every stage of life. Most importantly, she reminds us that it's never too late to embrace self-love, redefine our confidence, and live authentically. Hi, Lou. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, this is going to be a good one. I know. I'm so happy we finally made this happen. But, I've been thinking so much about this episode and your message and what you do. And I was thinking back, and for as long as I can remember, I've gotten the message from people who are in their 50s, 60s, 70s that aging just sucks. And that narrative, or the narrative that everything, starts falling apart. Your skin is wrinkled and sagging. You're running out of energy. There's just not a whole lot of fun left living. And not to mention the fact that how many times they've been told that that they tell me that they just feel invisible. So many people have said that to me. I don't think you could paint a more bleak picture of the second half of
Right?
your life. And I would love for you to talk about this because I feel like you completely changed your life based on what happened, when you moved to the US, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know. The older I get, the more I find I give less fucks. It just starts to happen naturally.
This is what I
which
hear about menopause.
which
It's
is very
exciting.
surprising. I don't know. I didn't expect it. I was like you, I think, in a little way. Interestingly, my followers, I was just saying to someone earlier today, the age range of my followers, the majority are around in their 40s. It's
Right.
around 44 to 48 to 50 is the main sort of age group that follow me. And I think it's like, back in indigenous days, and there was elders in the tribe, and younger people looked to the older people for the answers and some wisdom. So I kind of feel a little bit like that, even though I'm only 52 and making myself sound a lot older. But I don't know. I think the internet's funny, isn't it? It's like, I call it the devil in the deep blue sea. I think there's all the pitfalls and the downfalls of it. And we all know it doesn't portray everybody's real life. So I've always been really wanting to show the real side of it, all the good bits and the bad bits. But also I think it's helped, particularly women and particularly middle-aged women. I found it's helped us find each other in a lot of ways and find our voice and find ways to express how getting older is for us. And just try and it's not all bad. I mean, they're all of those things that you mentioned. There is the energy is it's harder some days. I'm creak out of bed some mornings going, good Lord, you gotta work at these things. It's about how you approach it,
Totally. It really
it's in
is.
it's in your mind. Yes, your skin does get saggier. I don't know what
Yeah.
to say about that. And women, some embrace it, some find it incredibly difficult, some have choose to have procedures, and all of those, it's whatever gets you through.
Mm-hmm.
But I've just found such a burst in middle life of confidence and energy, horniness, things I did not see coming.
Can we talk about that? Can we talk about your experience? Because I believe you came to live in the US and there's something to do with a passport and or sorry, a visa and being listed as a dependent, and then you completely changed your life after that, didn't
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. So we came out, my husband's, when we met at work, And we earned the same salary. I think I earned more than him, but we were on very different career paths. And he was always very sure of what he wanted to do, and he was terrific at what he did. His career started to soar. I had our son. We lived quite away from London, and he commuted up and down quite a lot. And I felt quite isolated down there. And then Oscar started at school, and but then, when it was typical marriage, we were neglectful of each other, and it was a rough ride. And then all of a sudden he got offered all these jobs in America. So that was super exciting. And that gave us a whole new lease of life. And off we went to America for his job. And, it was such an exciting time. He had a great new job, and it was terribly exciting, and I couldn't work. And I remember I was saying to people, what am I going to do? What am I going to do all day? I've always worked. Well, let me tell you, I actually settled into doing fuck all very quickly. I liked it a lot. I couldn't.
I completely agree with that. I feel the same way too. I'm like, yeah, nothing sounds good right now.
I kind of liking this, and I was volunteering at school, but I was meeting mums and other women, and I started hiking, and I met an amazing bunch of women. And we started hiking, and I formed this hike squad quite quickly. I went on somebody bought us a book, The Best Hikes Around Portland, within an hour and a half of Portland. It was a welcome to Portland present. And I literally had no friends. It was one of the first weeks we were there. And I thought, oh, no, I'll do one. So I went on one, took some pictures of myself, put it on Facebook. And a couple of people at school said, oh, could we come next time? And I was like, yeah, sure. Let's dump the kids at school. I'll meet you at the coffee shop. We'll go for a hike, and we'll be back for pickup. And so Hike Squad was born very quickly. And each week it would be a different bunch of women of just be like, come, bring your mate, just bring something to share for lunch. And we had a can of hiking wine. We marched to the top of a mountain, neck a can of hiking wine, and then we marched back again and be back at school to pick the kids up. It was brilliant. And I just started to get really fit and really strong. I discovered CrossFit, an amazing community at CrossFit who changed my life. And I just started to get fitter and stronger. And I was like, started to find my confidence. I found being surrounded by Americans incredibly uplifting and empowering, because the British are a miserable bunch, honestly. You come up with a business idea in the pub in Britain, and everyone will be like, well, I could tell you why that won't work. But Americans are like, oh my God, that's an amazing idea. Let me introduce you to my Uncle Bob. He would help you. And I know someone who could, or here's $1,000. I believe in what you're doing. Like, it blew my mind. I was like, it's so true. And the Brits are still like, well, no. I mean, no one would know. No, that wouldn't work. So I found that incredibly inspiring. And so I started coaching kids, and then I started doing Portland. I did Lewin Luland's vintage shopping tours of Portland. And I started to get Airbnb guests, and I take them around vintage shops, trying to encourage them to shape out the style, try something new, try vintage shopping, and try a new style, kind of at a fraction of a cost, and, introduce sort of a more sustainable way of shopping. And also you can get the best stuff in vintage stores. You get the unique bits. And so I'd have amazing people from all around the world, like men, women, couples. They would come, and, they would all come. Women would always say, so I'd send them a little message to say, thank you for booking, describe your style. What would you like to get out of the tour? Is there anything I need to know? And in the form, all the women who were coming would write in their form, I've got a big bum. My boobs are long. I can't fit in this. I only wear black. And it was like every woman started with a list of excuses or their worst fears. And so I loved taking these women shopping and making them try on. There's one lady, she came, I only wear black. She went home with a yellow jumpsuit. We toured around, we tried all these things on, and she started to just really love it. And I could see the difference that made, just to encourage people to try something a little bit different, and how that made people feel. And they carried themselves different, and they had such a fun experience. So that was an amazing sort of like part of the journey, really. And then I started.
What a transition. I think, by the way, it's just so hilarious what you said about Americans versus Brits, because it is so true. When I compare my experiences to talking to my British friends, and I'm from Antigua originally, so we have a very British background, compared to being in the US, it's very similar to what you described. And it just made me laugh so much, because I've had so many of those moments in my life.
So many of those moments.
Yes,
and we're so different. Our sense of humor is so different. Like,
yes,
Americans don't tease each other. Like, British people really make each other cry. They just take the piss out of each other so badly. Americans don't do that so much.
We take
Very
ourselves very
respectful.
seriously in America.
Very
Yes.
respectful.
Yes.
But I kind of admit you gotta take the piss out of each other.
You have to. Yeah, I know. I feel like you probably added a lot of zhuzh to that whole group of hikers.
Oh, well, we were quite the bunch. We were mostly out of there was 8 hardcore of us that really stuck together. We have ended up climbing. We've circumnavigated Mount Hood. We've done Mount St. Helens. We've done the rim to rim of the Grand Canyon. We just I don't know, we just grabbed life because most of us were expat wives or partners. And so we knew that this friendship would not last forever. It was kind of like a girls' weekend that lasted for about 7 years. And when you're in that moment together, everybody's terribly transient. Like several of the group husbands or partners lost their jobs, and then it's like, what do we do? We've moved to America. We've moved our children here. Our British children are now in the American school system. How do we take them home? Like, what do we do? So it's quite intense and a lot happening. But we also knew that we only had a matter of time while we were all together. So we're just like, fuck yeah, let's go, let's do it. And so we made the most of every day. And so that really helped that transformed my life. I was the chief, and then everybody had nicknames. But we had some amazing adventures together. And also we just do little hikes around Portland. We'd meet, there was our therapy. We met quite a lot through lockdown. We were able to get out in the woods together and feel safe. So we supported each other through that, which was amazing. We've had the best and the worst times together, top of a mountain in the shitty weather, and we're all driving each other mad.
During COVID, yeah.
And then there was the trip to Vegas when I had too much to drink and laid on the floor and caused a riot scene. That was a moment.
So talk to me about what happened, because I believe you're divorced now, right? Like what shifted, and and how did that come about?
So that was me shifting, really. So Hike Squad and CrossFit, I started to really change and find my confidence. And he really struggled with American corporate culture. And, obviously arrived this big swanky job and had a lot to prove. So while I wasn't working and loving that and couldn't work, he was working really hard. He had to go. That first year, they sent him to New York 42 times in the first year we were there. Whoa. So while we're trying to build this new life and we've come for all this adventure, he's got to work. Yeah. And he's got to establish himself in this new job. He worked for the company for 13 years in London. So that was incredibly, so on reflection, it didn't feel like it at the time, but almost immediately we started to start to lose each other and had such different experiences. I was making friends in the community, volunteering at school. I was at the gym, just couldn't even commit to anything to meet his own people. And then as my confidence grew, I started working and meeting more people. He was really struggling. And then lockdown came, and it broke us, and we weren't making each other happy. And so I moved into the spare room. We literally just lost each other. It's really sad. Like, I don't know. I remember once in therapy just saying to him, I wish you'd kind of like, I don't mean to be glib about it, but like, I wish you'd hit me, because then at least you'd understand. But what had happened was I just started to realize that I had based all my decisions and all my life been facilitating things to make it right for him, to make sure he had his career. And I just lost myself along the way. Yeah. And now I'd started to find myself. We then couldn't fit back together because he's like, hang on, it's like this. And I'm like, yeah, but I want to change it. And we just couldn't then find each other. It was really difficult.
Common though, right? I think that is so common. And I was thinking about, as you were saying this, you're basically stepping into your midlife or the second half of your life alone. I mean, yeah. I feel like so many women are just terrified of that. What was that like?
I mean, it's scary as hell, especially in America. People are like, why do you come home? It's such an amazing life. And I did have an amazing life. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I mean, Oregon was absolutely stunning. I loved Portland. I'd found amazing people. There wasn't really any work for me there. And then being separated from Guy, it's expensive for me. If I had a big regular salary, then great. But, I've been building my brand and my business, and that's going really well, but it's scary. And my mum had died. And so I don't know, something felt it was just time to come home, just take a breath.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day, as I was trying to decide what to do, because we'd managed to stay in the house for 2 years and kind of build a relationship around separate lives. And that was, it was good. It was brutal. It was really, really hard. And there was days where it was awful. And kind of, if you live in the same house, it's still a lot, even though we'd separated, it's still like, he's got a cold. I'm like making a hot water bowl and, you know,
Yeah.
but I care about the man, I love the man. Nothing happened. It was dreadful. We just drifted apart, but I still care about him. So the thing, actually, that was quite confusing for our son for a long time. He thought we were trying to figure it out. And we're like, yeah, no, it's just 2 houses is too expensive. And, so then as Oscar was getting ready to finish high school and go on a gap year before going to college, I'm like, what do I do?
Right.
And I saw a bus on the side of the road. It was an old Greyhound bus, and it had been converted into a camper. And I saw it and I just said to my friend, stop. And we screeched to a halt. And I was like, look at that bus. Oh my God. And at the time, Guy was really annoying me. My ex-husband was really, really annoying. And I was like, I'm just going to buy a bus and live in it. And I went, and what else could I do? We could have wicked parties in the bus. And I went, oh, and then we could do events out of the bus. And I could travel around and do Lou and Lulan from the bus. Oh my God, I need a bus. And that very night, there was a storm. This is all true, 100,000%. There was a storm and we lived in a forest, and there was a mighty crack, and 150-year-old tree fell down and it clipped the edge of the house and fell between the neighbour and I. And if it had hit the house, I'd be dead. I was like, it's the start. I need to buy the bus. And I started manifesting the bus. I started a Pinterest page with all these buses, but I found, all the really cool ones from Burning Man, and thinking of all the ideas I could do with the bus. And then about 5 days later, I mentioned to a friend this idea, and she said, oh, I've got a friend in Arizona, and she's renting some land to someone who's doing up old buses. He's flipping the inside. Do you want his number? And I went, yeah, go on then. So I sent him a text and said, look, I'm looking for a busser here. You've got one. Sent me the pictures, and it was Susie, who I ended up buying. She's a 35-foot, massive Class A old motorhome. And I said to him, I need the bus. It's all done up inside. He'd done it all up in green leopard print. There's pineapples. It's white. It's so me. I haven't got the money. You have to wait for me. He said, I'll give you a month. And I crowdfunded it and bought the bus. And I drove it back to Portland. Yeah, I got a one-way ticket down to Arizona and Tucson, picked her up, drove her back to Oregon, packed her up, packed up the house, and went on a tour around the States for 6,000 miles, preaching masturbation and self-love and confidence to anyone who would listen.
Okay, wait, hold on a second. We got to put the brakes on this. Wait, are you saying to me that you just first of all, how long did this process take? The buying of the bus and then the driving home and then going on this tour? How'd you do this?
7 months.
7 months. Okay.
7 months.
So you completely dismantled your whole life as you knew it and went for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I bought the bus, drove it back, shit myself. I mean, I got off the plane in Arizona, took one look at the bus and just sank to my knees in tears. And the guy
in good tears or terrified tears?
No, absolute. What have I done? Yeah. What have I done? And I've been, my friends had invested in me. There's no turning back. And I had the guy who was selling it to me took me on a test drive. Oh dear God. I mean, I was maniac. I mean, how I didn't take someone out, I just do not know. So we got back to the site and I said, well, I think what I'll do is I'll stay another 2 or 3 days, and every day we'll go out on a little drive. And he said, okay, yeah, that's a good idea. So I said, right, okay, good. So that night I made a video for Instagram, and I hadn't told anybody what I was doing because I just didn't believe it was happening. I had to just be in the moment. Sometimes I just go quiet. Yeah. So I made a video, and it's me just sitting in the bus going, I've done a thing. I've bought a camper van, and I don't know if it's the best idea I've ever had, or it's the biggest mistake I've ever made. And then I do this really hilarious shaky tour, and I'm crying my eyes out, and I'm like, I'm so scared. And I went to bed, and I woke up in the morning, and there was just hundreds of messages from people just going, fuck yeah, you can do this. We're so proud of you. You can do it. You can do it. You do it. So the guy turned up to give me a test drive, and I said, I'm going. And he went, no, what? No. And I said, no, I'm just going to go. And he went, are you sure? And I went, no, I've just got to go. I'm a badass. I can do it. I can do this. I've got it. I've just got to go and I've got to just get going. So he went, okay. I'll never forget. He's just standing there going, he's just waving at me with this look on his face as I drove away. And I did it. I never looked back. So I went back to Portland.
Yeah.
And then what I did was I then had to I then decided I had to figure out how to pay for the tour. I was like, how am I going to pay for the tour?
Right.
So I approached some brands that I'd worked with, or brands that I loved, and brands that I wanted to represent, and was could use, because I'm not a very good influencer. I'm not very good at sort of selling things. That's not really what I want to do. I'm not, I'll recommend products that I love, and I do some paid work because I've got to pay the bills. But it's always, I'm really fussy about who I work with. So I approached 5 brands that were women owned and women centric, and asked them all for sponsorship. So they all sponsored me in return for, obviously coverage and reels. They had their brands on the bus. They all gave me amazing samples, because one of my visions was to drive through the Bible Belt throwing vibrators out the window as I went. And I got to do that. Fun Factory, who were a vibrator company, they sponsored me. So I had tons of vibrators in the back of the bus. I was trundling through Texas with about 500 vibrators, about 20 bottles of gin in the back, thinking, I hope I don't get stopped by the cops. I'm going to be in so much trouble. every time a woman stopped by the bus, which was everywhere I stopped, women would come and knock on the door asking me what I was doing, or they Googled me and they came looking for help. I had quite a lot of women who came looking for help and advice and in trouble, and had Googled me. And
what kind of help? Like, what kind of advice were they asking you for?
There was a woman who had been beaten up by her husband, and so she stayed with me for a couple of days. We got her in a shelter. She'd been living in her RV about 4 RVs away, and she got into a huge fight. He really hurt her, so she sheltered with me for 2 days, and we waited for him to leave the RV, and then we got all her stuff out. We got her into a shelter, and there was other RV parks. I found women who were just living in their RVs with their health insurance, just dying of cancer quietly.
Oh my goodness.
Alone. Alone with no health insurance. 3 in one campsite, just in one RV park.
What?
So I connected them I was able to connect them together. Women who were on the run from, lots of women living out on the road who were on the run from fundamental religion. Lots and lots of people on the run from Utah.
Really?
Yeah, from violent relationships. And
Wow.
then lots of couples who just like, fuck it, let's sell the house, let's go on the road, and they live in their RVs chasing the sun. People who'd lost their homes through violence, through divorce, through health insurance. So many people who lost their homes through health insurance.
Or through lack of health insurance, you mean?
Yeah. I can't.
America.
Trying to explain to British people what that's like, it's too hard. And that was part of coming home. I just found the disparity between those who have and those who haven't so huge. I just couldn't, it didn't sit right, because I was one of those who had, and that just felt very uncomfortable to me. It's just different in the UK, I think, where it's a different society set up.
Totally, right? Like, and so incomprehensible if you have grown up in a country where that is not even a consideration, it's not even a thought. Yeah, I can imagine how challenging that is.
And then women's rights was terribly painful for me. I found that incredibly difficult when it's
Was that specifically in certain states where you traveled through certain states, or was it just across the board?
Across the board. And then just as I was about to set off, Roe versus Wade was overturned, and suddenly the whole tour was just like, well, this is now not a jolly trip. This is the freaking mission. And I was like, right, I'm gonna take women across the borders for abortions, and I want to go and get stuck in. But I mean, nobody wants an influencer rolling through town in a leopard print bus to help, quietly take people over the border. I wasn't able to get as involved as I had really hoped I could. But instead, I had a lot of amazing conversations along the way with people who I just met, people in the line for the breakfast, or the ladies in the RV next to me, I met some amazing racist lesbians from Florida. They were amazing. And I said to them, we had a really interesting, good conversation, and they were very I brought up Nike, so they got quite anxious. They got quite animated about Kaepernick, and I said, and then they were saying how disappointed they are with the statues being ripped down, and I said to them, well, "Are you okay? So are you proud of slavery or that history for America?" And they went, "Well, no." And I went, "So why would you want a statue to someone who was the epitome of that? How would you feel as a person of color having to walk past that every day on a very basic level?" And they were like, never thought about it like that.
It's amazing though, isn't it? How I think so many of us end up in these little bubbles, or
We live in our bubbles.
right? We live in our bubble, and it's just, for me, it's just sort of an
So
echo
dangerous.
chamber, right? And when you're in that echo chamber, you're never going to have a different perspective, because I feel like that is the most basic question you could have asked to sort of shift their perspective, and look at how easily that happened just with
And I
one
had
simple
that was
question. Yeah.
that was cut and paste, whether it was abortion. I had these conversations all the way, and it was like person by person as I went. My vision for the tour was I could connect. I'd hold events everywhere I went and try and connect women in their local area, because women find it so hard to find each other. And I think everyone's looking for connection these days. We all, particularly since COVID, people want experience and to feel life again. And so that's what I thought I could do, be a conduit as I kind of went. And I did that, but also it was more these things that were happening on the underside of the tour that I didn't put online, because so many people were looking me up and coming for help, that I couldn't talk about that online at the time, because I didn't want put people off coming.
Right.
To knock on the door.
So did you do this tour? Were you doing actual shows or events and things like that along the way
Yeah.
throughout
So
different states?
each sort of main stop I went, I'd partner with different people. When I got to Austin, for example, amazing vintage shop owner who's followed me for ages, she opened her vintage store. We had a big evening. People came, shopped. I did a big talk. We had cocktails. There was some other vintage vendors came in, and we had a fantastic evening. When I went up to Nashville, I had everybody to Susie, and we had a girls' night at Susie.
And Susie is your bus
Usually,
name, right?
yeah, Susie
Yes.
is the
Okay.
bus name.
Yes. Okay.
Usually when you put women together, it takes care of itself.
It certainly does. That's so true.
If you make space for people, and you do that with this, and I do it with Instagram or with the events, whatever, if you make a space, people will come, because they're looking for that. And so there's some of us that leading and trying to create the space to encourage other women to take up space. So that's what makes me happy. I've got a PR agency now, because I'm getting all fancy, and they're like, "What's the goal? What's the goal? Where are you going? Like, what would make you? What is it?" And I'm like, "It's literally one woman at a time. I don't know what to say to you. It's not £1 million. That's not it. It's just reaching as many women as I can to just try and shift the way that they think about things. It's no,
Can
I
we
don't
talk
know.
about that? Can we talk about
Yeah.
that shift the way they think about things? Because on your website, you say you're helping others grow old disgracefully, which made me laugh out loud. And I'm just curious, is that the mission? Like, what's the mission for you? I know I'm sounding like your PR agency now, but
Not at all.
I am so curious what it is, what the goal is for the women that you encounter or hope to influence.
So I think when I gave up shopping for a year, which I did 11 years ago, I'm a terrible shopaholic. I have a chronic financial problems my whole life. And I gave up shopping for a year to try and stop the addiction. And it changed my life forever, because at the end of the year, what I was left with, amongst um, lots of things, was a feeling of confidence that I'd never ever felt before, and a sense of pride in myself. And I was 41. When I was more freaked out that I could put my finger on that feeling. I was like, "Oh my God, that's terrible that I'm 41. It's taken me that long." And I also discovered that year that whatever I put my mind to, I could be really good at. I was like, imagine what I could do if I actually put my mind to it. What is it? And I think I've always known that life is got to be more than about me. I want to, that's how I feel happy sharing. And I did a talk recently about being vulnerable and sharing my life online, because a lot of my Instagram is sharing the good bits and the bad bits and the ugly bits, and more people resonate with, I think, my honesty and my than anything else. And then I do crazy antics. So, and that's just, yesterday's reel was me in a burger bra outside the local burger store down the road, in the middle of lunchtime, with an umbrella, because I'm like, you don't have to buy a bus and drive around America or stand in a South London burger bar, but who gives a fuck? Like, who cares? If I can do this, what could you do? And for some people, that's like, if she can do that, I can get out of bed. I can find the courage to tell my partner I'm unhappy. So a lot of what I do is to try and just show people what's possible. It doesn't have to be what I'm doing. It's not do as I do. It's not do as I say. It's, I don't know. I just try to inspire people just to try something new and see what happens. And if it goes wrong, then what the fuck? That's better. At least I've lived and I've tried. I mean, so all the cliches are true, right? It's better to have tried and to have failed and at least given it a go than not to have bothered. And through that, I've learned that even when I know when things are bad, or I'm really down, or I'm really low, or I'm really struggling to see the joy in every day. In those days when you just can't find the sunshine, you think you're never going to be able to think positively again, and you're doomed.
Yeah,
I know on those,
yes,
right?
very relatable.
And then that goes on for 2 or 3 days, and then you really start to panic. It's definitely not coming back. I now can think to myself, I think, yes, come on, where's the good day? I get excited for the good day because I know when I go down, I'm going to come up again. So that's quite exciting. And if things are really scary, the scarier the thing, the better it is. And I found that it's just such a simple switch in your head can make a complete difference,
Yeah.
I've learned that excited and terrified are exactly the same thing. That the bus tour taught me that. I couldn't figure out what I was feeling. It was so many things all at once. And the fear and the excitement just became, it's the same thing.
Well, I think it's so interesting what you said a little while ago, where you talked about being 41 and deciding to quit shopping for a year. And you said the thing out loud that a lot of people won't say is that you had money problems for so long because you couldn't quit this thing. And it was a huge addiction and it was causing a lot of issues in your life. Not a lot of people would just come right out and say that. And so I just want to say, I really appreciate you saying that, because you were just so matter of fact about it. And I think that was really surprising to me, because people don't come on here and talk about like their deep, dark, shitty issues that, that bring a lot of shame, I think, for a lot of us.
Well, for the first time I talked about, I've always said I'm a shopaholic, but I've always made light of it for many years.
Right.
And then I did a big podcast with a woman called Dorno Porter here. It was about shopping. A lot of the podcasts I do are about, they can be about many things, usually different topics. I mean, it was a while since I talked about shopping, and she's all about style. So she wanted to know if I always dress like this, and we were talking through the shopping, and obviously the shopping addiction came up. And, I started to just start talking about it. My mouth was running away with me a little bit. And I talked, I at the depths of my postnatal depression, I was stealing money from work to buy clothes and got fired from that job. It was the root of a lot of the problems in my marriage was me. Both of our relationship with money was very different, but mine was very, secretive, shameful behavior. He had no idea I was stealing money from work, and I've lived in a lot of financial shame. And I talked about it quite openly on that, more by accident than anything else. And a lot of people really engaged with it. And then I was interviewed again in another big podcast here called Dirty Mother Pucker, and I talked again about it. And it just unleashed. My inbox was just full of women with stories living with financial abuse, financial shame. So many women with secret debts, just living in fear that their husbands are going to find out. It really resonated with so many people. It was the first time I through me sharing my shame, I don't feel so alone anymore. I thought I was alone. So by sharing it, it helped me so much to, that sounds awful to hear everybody else's.
No, I mean,
I'm not
we're a
mad.
collective. Yeah, we're all in this together. Right.
Yeah, we all got I was tricked into credit at 17.
Right.
I just thought it was a great idea. Who isn't at 17? I was 17. They didn't even do a credit check. It wasn't even computers. They just gave me a catalogue. and I ran up thousands of dollars, thousands of pounds. I looked great, but I know. So I've just given up shopping for another year because through the tour, I was just, I was just ram raiding vintage stores all around America, and I was on tour, and I was like, yeah, I'm on tour, just buy loads of vintage, it's great. And I got home, and I bought so much stuff. I've got to just get myself under control. And London is just a fashion mecca, so every turn is like being an alcoholic at a pub. So I've had to just say, right, no shopping for a year, and it's ridiculously hard. But I've got so many clothes, and
Oh my goodness.
the other amazing thing that the non-shopping project taught me last time was that I was really worried about not having anything new. I was worried what people would talk to me about because I felt like everybody just wanted to talk to me about my outfit because it was new. So for that year, I didn't wear the same outfit twice, and I started to really mix and match the way I wore things and wearing things slightly differently and like jazzing things up. And people loved it more. And I was like, well, look at that. I had everything I needed. I already had it inside. And now I'm like, it's like life. I already had what I need. You just got to rejig it or think about it in a different way. So,
Oh, that's so
so
good.
I thought, fuck it, I'll do it for another year and see what happens this year.
Yeah. Well, it'll be a whole different experience 10 years later. Um, do you have any thoughts or wisdom to share? I mean, you shared so much good stuff with women who are sort of going into menopause, because I feel like you said this earlier, right? And I've heard this many times before. You start to give less fucks at this time in your life. And I imagine it's very much the hormonal changes that are happening, and also the societal piece of things. Like a lot of times your kids are going off to college, so you suddenly have all this time, or you're left with a bit of a blank slate. A lot of times relationships are ending in this time too. So I'm just curious, like, I know I think I read something about you're the founding member of the Zero Fucks Club, which made me laugh too. But I'm curious about that. Like, do you have any thoughts or anything that you want to share with women who are approaching this time in their lives and probably really resonate with a lot of what you're saying?
I think we're programmed to dread change, aren't we? We cling, especially as mums. Well, as humans, we cling to our routines. We don't like. We know where we feel safe in our day-to-day routine. And I think then at this point, if you've got children, they're probably heading off to college, and like you say, you got this blank slate. You got blank slate. That's so exciting. It could go one way or the other. It's up to you, right? It's up to you. And like I said, there are parts of it that are harder, but also there's more time on your hands. And women, I think we're programmed to change. We've been changing our body. We were built to accommodate somebody else. Our bodies are designed to house someone and grow someone. It blows my mind. That's what we're built for. And then we do that and we give everything to everybody else. And if we choose not to do that or aren't able to do that, we're shamed for it and judged for it. And then that part of your life kind of kids start to head off to college, and that was a start. That was certainly a distinctive point for me, was when I started to be when Oscar was probably about 16, 17, and I could see he was doing okay, and I was like, I can see that I've done an all right job. He's a good human, and I felt quite proud of that. And I raised a little independent dude, so that's great. But it's like, okay, well, what about me now? I get to do it, and I think the years. I mean, it's the end of our periods. Who doesn't want that? we just we just had the worst time. How many pairs of knickers have we ruined over the years? It's just not okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to
And it's
change
all
that, but yes.
yeah,
Agreed.
it's just not okay. And it's just, I don't know, there's so much shame around it, and it's just always about somebody else. It's just nice. This is your chapter. And I think another part of difficulty in marriages is often sex, right? And sex life. For sure, we both neglected ours. It was not just one of us or other of us. It was very easy for it to fall into neglect. And I absolutely categorically refused to go on date nights because I just thought that was for people who were just trying to force it. And if you were now, I'm just like, oh my God, could we just not have made time for each other? Could it have been that simple? I don't know. Who
Yeah.
knows? If we'd made some space for each other, maybe it could have just been that simple. Or that might have made a tweak of difference. I don't know. But we won't know that. And I can't wind the clock back. But that fell into neglect. And then I started to, as we separated, I started to get feel sexy again. I got dick pic is what actually happened from a young man at the gym, and I was like, oh my god, I feel horny again. I feel
Okay,
horny
that's
again.
awesome. Wow.
I'm like the
Just
worst
one
feminist in the
thing.
world, and it wasn't a particularly good one, but it was just, and I hate it because it makes me the worst feminist in the world, and I hate giving that dick pic the power. But it
I
did.
mean, Lou, it
It was a
it did
moment.
what it had to do. I
It
mean,
worked.
yeah.
It worked, and nothing happened with the dick pic, except I felt horny and discovered vibrators and started really enjoying that. And then I became an advocate for a vibrator company online, started to make money out of it, which just blows my mind. And then um, the more I tested the product, the hornier I feel, the sexier I felt. And it kind of, that's really helped bring me back to life feeling sexual. And it's for the first time in my life, it's not about anybody else, it's about me. You know, I might make your toes curl if I told you. I could tell you stories for days of the antics I have got up to over the years with the boys. I loved the boys. If you looked at me, I would probably sleep with you. And for the first time in my life, I feel sexy for me and nobody else. And that is so empowering. I can't tell you. Look, you will laugh. I've just signed with a new vibrator company and I've just had a box of vibrators.
Show up at your door. For
To
everyone who is
test
not
out.
looking at this on video, she's got like multiple vibrator boxes.
Look at this one. It fits on your finger. It's like a
Oh,
ring.
oh, look at that.
Hello. Look, handy.
Oh, girl, you could teach us all a few things,
I
clearly.
mean, imagine the videos I could make with that. Hilarious.
The-
So these are the perks of the job. And look at this. This is a spray to make your to give you water for oral sex. I mean, who even knew?
what? This is what I
Yeah,
mean.
it makes your mouth wetter
Oh,
for
what?
better oral sex.
Okay.
I'll let you
I
know.
I
You can
feel
read the
like
review.
I will read your review, no doubt. I don't worry, I'm following you. Um, there's so much here. I feel like you just went into the last thing I really wanted to cover, which was menopause and sex and sexuality and how, we live in this very youth obsessed culture, obviously. And the idea or the thought of middle-aged or older people having sex has never been a good thing. Not, we don't want to go there, right?
Mm-mm. You're like,
It's the
no,
classic
mum and dad are having
teenager,
sex.
yes, right, on TV saying like, "Oh my God, I don't want to hear this," and they've got their hands over their ears. Um, and you just straight up, you go right into it, and don't you have like nothing? There's no baggage there. There's no shame. There's no nothing. And I feel like that is so rare.
I think, but if we don't talk about it like it's normal, it's normal. We're built for it. We all love it. Everybody wants it.
Very true.
There's so much shame around it. It blows my mind. I tell you what, I went to at the end of the tour. I did a talk at a sex exhibition in New York, and it was amazing. It was the most fun day. I had to go out and warm up the crowd who were on the line outside first. That was my first job of the day. I had the megaphone. There was a line of horny New Yorkers for like 12 blocks, all waiting to get into the sex exhibition. And it was sex toys and lingerie, and there was workshops for all sorts of things that will make your hair curl. I was like, and I was on in between I think I was on in between the spanking workshop, and then there was me. And then there was a workshop for dirty talking if you wanted to learn how to talk dirty. But there was just, it was filled with couples together or gangs of girls or guys just like looking for a good time, looking for fun, looking to enjoy their lives, looking to just have fun. And it was so liberating to be with people just living their life and having it out there. It's like, I don't know. And especially for the kids, there's so much shame around it. And they get such mixed messages from porn online now. When you read the statistics of our poor kids and what they see online, it's so disgusting
Yeah.
and so horrific. I think unless we're more able to have these conversations at home with our kids and take the shame out of it, so our kids talk to us about what's going on, because otherwise they go looking for the answers online. So I've always been very open with my son. I want him to come to me and ask me. I want him to come to me when he's in trouble. I don't want him I want to feel it not to be awkward amongst. It's still awkward, don't get me wrong. Your mum's selling vibrators online. Are you kidding? But actually he's got quite used to it.
Has
And
he?
my father's in the church, found it the hardest, but even he now is quite He sends me all sorts of funny things now. He's so proud of me. It's
So you've got the
amazing.
whole family on board.
Family. They're
In
all
other words.
vibrator advocates.
Oh my gosh, this is so good. Oh, wow. I mean, I feel like we could keep talking. I do want to be cognizant of your time. And I do want to ask though, if there's any parting words, if there's anything that you want to leave my listeners with, who I am sure very much value and appreciate the message you shared today, because you are clearly just living life on purpose and it is very admirable.
I think just don't settle. Don't, I don't know. There was just, I don't know. I listen to your nagging discontent. If there's a nagging discontent in there, just try some new things. Just try and break out of your comfort zone. It doesn't have to be massive. Like I say, it doesn't mean leave your husband and drive around the country in a bus, in a broken down bus. You don't have to be that extreme, but just little changes. Start to look for the joy, like consciously look for joy in every day. And, when times are tough, just remember you will come out of it. If you go down, you have to come up. And this too shall pass for sure. And if you're going through a bad time, yes, embrace, because the good times will come.
It's temporary. It's temporary.
Yeah,
yes.
It's all temporary. Just keep going. Just keep swimming, swimming, keep swimming.
Oh my gosh, you are a gem. Thank you so much for this conversation. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. I have laughed harder than I've laughed on my podcast in a really long time.
Oh, good.
Thank you. You're incredible and you're such a force. And I would love for you to just tell everybody who's listening where they can find you. I know you're on Instagram, obviously, and website and things like that.
Mainly on Instagram, Lou Newland and louandnewland.com, which is sort of developing as we speak. So we'll see what you can find on there.
Okay. I love that. You don't have the expectation set right away.
Yeah, let's manage that one.
Okay. Amazing. Well, thank you again so much. I hope you have the best rest of your day and we will talk soon.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
See you, darling.
Bye. That's a wrap. Be sure to click that subscribe button to join me for more Girl Talk Gone Menstrual in upcoming episodes. But in the meantime, check out my latest Period Party episode. And if you're looking for a deeper dive into your hormones, go ahead and take my period quiz at nicolejardim.com/quiz.